Hey everybody, it's Marcy from wavesofcommunication.com, and today's hot topic video is all about eating and late talking. And I decided to do this video because there are a lot of late talking children who I work with in my program who also have issues with eating. So I decided that it might be a good idea to come on and do a hot topic about this so that we can have a discussion and you can find out maybe start to put some of the pieces together about figuring out what's going on with eating with your late talking child. If this is the first time that you're watching me, welcome. Thank you so much. I'm glad you're here. My name is Marcy Melzer, and I am an intuitive speech and language pathologist consultant. And I help parents teach their late talking children how to use the words they need to share all their wisdom with the world. And I teach them how to do that during their everyday activities using what I call language facilitation, which is just a process that parents use to model and demonstrate the necessary speech that kids really want to know how to say. And one of the things that we end up doing and figuring out in the process of getting kids to shift from nonverbal communication into using words is dealing with eating issues, because there's a lot of communication that happens around eating for sure. So what I want to talk about today is some topics about this that can maybe help you to think about the process a little bit better. And so in your efforts to help your child overcome eating issues, these might be some of the things that you can consider in the process. So the first thing that I wanted to mention is that the muscles that are used for eating are the same muscles that are used for talking. So that's often why speech and language pathologists are educated and trained, and our jobs in a lot of the world is to help people develop the ability to eat and swallow safely, the inside stuff, make sure that everything goes down okay safely. So many children who are late talking are also affected by problems with the physiological structures of eating. Maybe if they're born prematurely, they don't even have the muscle tone developed to do the suck and swallow that babies do, and they have to learn. So premature kids with any kind of motor problem like cerebral palsy or Down syndrome, any kind of situation that's going to affect the actual physiology, the actual structures of the eating in weakness and structured situation like tongue tie, cleft lip, these kinds of physiological issues obviously are going to affect both talking and eating. And if there was some sort of physiological problem, then the priority, of course, is to take care of the physiological problem before you can deal with the function of those muscles. For example, if you have a broken arm, you have to set it and cast it, and then you have to do therapy to actually learn how to use the muscles again, because they had to be very still while the bones were healing, and so you have to redo the muscles. And the same happens with eating and talking for motor problems, physiological problems that happen, structural things. So for example, if a child has a tongue tie, has a real severe tongue tie, and they can't suck and swallow to eat, then they're going to need to have some physiological remediation, a clipping, so that the tongue can move again and the child can actually use their tongue to, get around the nipple, to do all the physical things required to eating. And eating, of course, is always the priority over talking, because it's how nutrition gets in there. So if there were problems with the mouth and the physical structures coming in from the beginning, then all of those issues have to be taken care of first, and then always the first thing to focus on functionally is eating. And depending on how that goes, the child may develop the ability to eat all the food that they need, or they only may develop compensatory ways. So if there was some real physiological problem, maybe the child wasn't able to get enough nutrition orally and they have to have a tube in their tummy. And so lots of premature kids, that's what happens. They will develop the ability to eat, but they haven't yet because they were born, you know, way too early, and their whole systems weren't, even their digestive systems weren't developed yet, you know, all of this part of it. So yeah, so Brianna, hey, thanks for joining me. She says, Jack hates eating, no clue how he's so big. Well, something's getting in there. The thing is, and that's what we're going to talk about later, it's not necessarily the physiological problem that happens that really causes problems with eating, okay? So it's of course going to happen. It's a no-brainer that people are going to work hard to get nutrition into a child somehow. And if it do have to be some sort of alternative way to get the nutrition in, like a tube or even a diet change, like they can't have any thin liquids, they have to have only thick liquids, or maybe they can't have any solid foods, they can only have soft foods, and that's because of safety, right? Because nutrition and safety always comes before communication, even though the same processes are used, the physical processes are used for both things. They're just used differently, right? One, things go in, the food and nutrition liquids go inside of you into your stomach, down your esophagus, which is the back throat, at the back tube, and then your voice and air and breathing is in the front in your trachea. This is your little physiological lesson. And there's different processes of muscles that affect both of these systems, the system of ingestion and swallowing and the systems of breathing. And of course, the systems of breathing and swallowing are way more important than communication to a child, and especially if they're born prematurely and they're like less than 2 pounds, you know. So of course, at first you have to deal with these physiological things, but it's important to understand that in the process of dealing with these physiological things, you have put both eating and talking kind of on the back burner ahead of nutrition and respiration, right? We've got to get the baby eating, getting nutrition, and breathing effectively, and then we can work about eating nice food, or, you know, trying to eat, you know, nutritional food through your mouth. We just have to get them, you know, IVs and then tubes, you know, that kind of stuff. I know I've gone into that a lot, but I just kind of wanted to let you know how I'm talking about it, because it is all encompassing for a family. Communication isn't even thought of until these situations are taken care of, and then when they do, and these situations, just the nutritional intake and breathing can take up to 2 years to get situated in a very late talking child, in a very early child. So micro preemies, and I know this because I worked in early intervention, and I just have actually finished the first about month, not quite 3-4 weeks, I guess we're about a month now, with my first micro preemie family in my Waves of Communication program. And that's kind of what prompted me to do this video today, because what they have experienced is, because it took so long for their child's physiology, about 18 months it took for their child to catch up to the ability to actually start to look at the functions of the mouth for other things, for actual interest and curiosity and learning, like all the ways that we do. The child learned to use his mouth to explore toys a lot, mouthed things that way and explored things that way, but nothing ever got past his lips. Like nothing ever got in there, because the child knew when he was a very tiny baby that there was fear in his family surrounding the process of eating, okay? So just the idea of, don't let the baby put anything in their mouth because the baby can't swallow it safely. All right, for a child who's on a G-tube, that's a reality. And parents every day are like, he can't put anything in his mouth, he can't put anything in his mouth. And then suddenly you go to the doctor and the doctor says, all good, all systems go, everything's working, the swallowing mechanism is good, it's all tested, they've done it on x-ray, and everything's clear and everything's good to go, except for your mindset, because up until this point, 18 months in the case of this family, their mindset was, don't let the baby put anything in his mouth. And now it's, we want to get all the nutrition into the baby's mouth. And this is a change, a complete change in mindset. And we're not just talking about a habit change. We're not just talking about going from eating smooth food to chunky food, which is also a change in mindset. Anytime you have to make a change in a diet because you're wanting to make a change in a diet because the child had fear-based reasons for not eating before, you must overcome this fear of eating before you can start to try to, okay, now we're going to feed the baby 10 times a day, because that's what's going to happen. Because often that's what a nutritionist says is, more experience with something will get a child more exposed and accustomed and used to doing it. So you just expose your child to foods. You offer them food over and over and over and over and over again to get them to do it. So we're going to make a shift. But what the nutritionist forgot to realize is that this family what do you mean we can give him food? But we couldn't give him food. You're sure we can give him food? Because before, they were told by the same professionals, if you give your baby food, your baby could die. And now they're told, give your baby food every half an hour. And think about the shift in a mindset for a parent, okay? Crazy. So in the next video I'm going to talk about how to work through that mindset. But in this one, I want to let you know that if there is some of this history in your life, if there were some real reasons that your child was forbidden to eat because it was unsafe, that it was not no, you can't do it. Anytime you have that feeling around it, you have to overcome that feeling first. And it in itself is a process, okay? And on my tip of the week video tomorrow, we're going to talk about that process. We're going to talk about a bunch of processes. But today we're talking about why it happens and what you need to understand. And so if you are trying to force feed a child that historically has been on a G-tube without working on this mindset stuff first, then that's what's potentially holding you up. So that's what I wanted to let you know. Same structures, same mechanisms. And what I want to let you know too is about late talking happens the same thing. So remember, child nonverbal, not using words to communicate, maybe getting older. Like I said, these swallowing processes and breathing processes can take 18 months to 2 years to even get started, to be able to use these systems functionally for, learning instead of just life support. So what happens then is, once you start to do it, you have to realize how to overcome that mindset, and then you can give your child repeated exposure in a way that feels easy, happy, safe, and fun. And that's how we're going to move into that. So the other thing that you need to know is, let's say this wasn't a case, okay? Let's say your child always was eating and maybe they were drinking bottles or drinking milk, or, you used a lot of that. Maybe your child is addicted to the cup of their milk, that's their milk, and you put their extra nutrition in that to help them get extra nutrition, because remember, it's all about nutrition at first. So, maybe your child isn't on a tube feeding, they're using their mouth, but they're just drinking a cup. They're just drinking most of their liquid that way, and they're not interested in eating solid food. Same kind of mindset change. Yeah, and this is what I was going to say, is how it happens with communication. So if a child is addicted to using a certain way of communicating, like every time they want that milk, they go to the fridge and bang the fridge, and oh, it's milk time, because he's, there wanting his fridge, and milk arrives and here's the milk, right? Because so child gets used to, not only are they addicted to that milk and that's their main nutrition and that's what they love to drink or eat, or that's what they eat all the time, the one thing they eat all the time if they're restricted on food. So if there's ever any kind of choice, remember, all of these mindset things are choices. you're probably offering your child lots of things and they're choosing not to eat those things. You have to figure out why. And it's just the same with communication. If your child is not using words to communicate, just like they're not eating the food you're giving them, and instead they're drinking milk or eating the one thing they eat or eating the whatever, same with communication. You're asking them, you're wanting them to use these words, but instead they're using these other ways to communicate. It's because the mindset shift hasn't happened. It's because the child doesn't see your food as better than their choice. Because the child's always going to go with what they like, their choice first. What's easy, happy, safe, and fun for them. So if that food, whatever Brianna says Jack is eating because he's massive, whatever he's not eating, he's eating something and his body's metabolizing it well enough to get him to be huge, but it's not what you want. Somehow he's getting that nutrition. So pay attention. How's it getting in there? If he's not eating food, he's getting in there somehow. Or his body doesn't need it, or, you know, whatever. That's what you have to figure out. Everybody's different, right? So in your family, if there are holdups to talking and there are holdups to eating, you might want to think about the mindset that goes with both of these activities, okay? Because here's the thing. Kids who only rely on alternative systems are set. They're happy. Just like Brianna says, Jack's growing. Not only is he, you know, not eating, but he's also healthy. Win-win, right? You know, maybe what you're asking him to eat isn't necessary. Or if he is big, is he healthy? I mean, that's what you have to think about, because sometimes people get bigger when they eat food, but it's not healthy. So when your kids are growing and they're in growth spurts and you think about their health and you think about their welfare and you think about all that, that could be the situation. Now, here's another situation that happens, and it's kind of, again, sort of a necessity thing. Let's say a child is having, you know, all these issues and they're not eating foods and they're not eating much, and they go to the doctor and the doctor sees, you know, does blood levels, and the child is seriously nutritionally deprived. Okay, or maybe, you know, the child is not eating at all, you know, they're really failing to thrive, and then again the nutrition goes back to the primary focus. Remember that this mindset part is just as important, because we eat food for a lot more reasons than just to get nutrition. In fact, your kid doesn't even know that nutrition is why food is involved. They don't know. They don't know that vitamins and minerals are necessary for their body to grow. They know when their tummy gets hungry. That's all they know. And they know, and they know what they taste, if they like how it tastes or not. And they know the texture of what they're eating. And they know how safe it is to swallow or not. And whether that's the truth or not, it's what they know is what matters. So anytime you're thinking about eating, I want you to think a lot about the mindset around the things that go, because the kids who refuse food, right, you need to figure out first, why are they refusing this food? Is it because they physiologically are scared? Not physiologically are scared. They mentally are scared. They physiologically can't. Like, you haven't figured out how to solve those problems yet, and there's problems with their throat or their mouth or their lips or, you know, those things. Because if those muscles are weak because your child has never done any kind of eating or talking, you know, maybe your child was intubated for a long time. So if your child hasn't ever used these muscles and they can't, like, they can't open their mouth and close their mouth, and they can't, you know, stick out their tongue to lick something, you know, the basic things your mouth has to do. I'm not talking about crazy oral motor exercises here. I'm just talking about basic what you have to do to eat. Chew, suck, sip, to get from the beginning. Sip, suck, swallow, chew, swallow, form a bolus, swallow. Those are the steps that you have to do to swallow. And if your physiological body can't do those things, I'm not talking about the planning to make it happen. That comes from experience. I'm talking about the physiological, motorical, neurological components of it. If those things are not functioning, then you need to do intervention to get those things functioning better. And that's where practice comes in. Okay, so if your child's a premature child, instead of doing exercises like physical therapy exercises, what you have to do is practice to get them using them, which is why nutritionists say feed your baby more often to give them more practice, which is why speech therapists say talk to your baby more often to get them more exposure. So the thing is, once the systems are working well, you have to make that process so easy, happy, safe, and fun. And that's what we're going to talk about tomorrow in the process to go through with real strategies and how to do it. So the physiological problem you have to fix first, the mindset problem you have to fix next, then you have to get the strategies to make it happen. And that's how it goes. That's the way that you work through any problem you have, including eating. Now, there is one more problem that happens that has absolutely nothing to do with your child's mindset and your child's choices. This is what has to do with your mindset and your choices. Because just like your child was afraid to swallow because he heard everyone around them saying, don't let the baby put anything in their mouth, the child was, you were also afraid, what if my baby puts something in their mouth, right? They could choke, they could die. Anytime a parent hears something like that, it puts them in fear mindset. Baby die equals fear, right? and even though you've had every test on the planet that proves that you have the documentation in front of you that says he's met all the levels, the speech therapist assures you all those muscles work, the first time you go to try to put food in your child's mouth, you're going to be scared. You can't help it. So this is what you need to think about and you need to remember over and over and over again before you even get into the process of trying to use strategies to help your child, is think about what you know yourself as the truth. If you believe the documents, then you have to tell yourself, we believe the documents. Like, as you're thinking, me, myself, and I, making decisions, or you and your husband, or you and your family, as you decide, before you put food into that child's mouth, before you offer them anything, you have to think about your fear base before you offer that taste of food for them. And the first taste of food you're going to offer them, I promise you, is not on a spoon. It's going to be like on your finger. Taste that. It has to be so easy and simple and easy. It can't be a big old plate of something that you're like, here we go, now we're going to have to think about that. That's like telling a child who's afraid of roller coasters that, you know, okay, I promise you there's nothing to be afraid of, and the first roller coaster we're going to try is the tallest one in the planet, right? We're not going to do the baby one first to give you a chance and let you like ease into it. No, we're going to give you whatever. And that's the equivalent of taking a child from tube feeding or lack of trying or refusal to eat food to putting a spoon of anything in their face, right? It literally will make them run for the hills and put your progress back. So you need to be thinking about how you are approaching this whole eating situation with your child and figure out what it is about it. Now, if your child is refusing to eat because you're like, man, they're not eating anything and they're not going to have enough nutrition, so you have taken it upon yourself to be the tube feeding, like you're the one that chases them around with food and feeds them, or you put them in front of an iPad while you spoon feed them food, you know. If these things are happening in your house, then you have completely bypassed the process of teaching your child how to eat on their own. And you've taken it on for yourself. And I promise you, you probably are feeling weary because especially as a child gets to be 2 and 3 and 4 years old, your whole life is around that eating, and maybe it's habitual. You know, maybe it's like, you know, you're still stuck in the nutrition has to get in him. And then at what point will you ever shift as a parent to shifting your child into, my child's a big kid now, he can swallow food safely, he can eat everything on his own, and we want him to be part of our family and eat with our family, instead of it being all about getting the food into the child. Because I promise you, your child's not caring about it that much. He's just happy as long as his tummy's got something in it. And if he's not begging for food, then he's not hungry, because kids don't do that, you know, unless they crave stuff, and then that's a whole different ball game. And once again, we're going to talk about that more on tomorrow's video. I couldn't do this all together on one video because it would be 2 hours long, but I wanted to make sure you understand in this video, this hot topic video, how much of what you're doing with your child, your late talking child, to get them to talk and to get them to eat are very similar. As long as you have the mindset of it's up to me to make sure my child has their nutrition. It's up to me to make sure that my child communicates all of their things. It's up to me to make sure my child learns everything. And if you take all that, I hear it in my throat because it's like, it's even hard for me to say it. The universe says, no, this is not what parents should be saying. Because the way parenting works, your jobs as parents, our jobs as parents, is to empower our kids to do these things on their own, to communicate their own needs, to gain their own nutrition, because at some point, hopefully not in the too distant future, your child's going to want to do those things on their own. And if they don't already, you know, they probably do already, but you're keeping the control over these things and making them happen for your child instead of empowering your child to be independent and do that. So that's what I want you to think about if that's the situation going on with you. If you're watching this video live or the replay, please give it a like, okay? And share it with anybody you know who might be stuck in this situation so that they can start to think about what's going to happen. And the other thing I want you to do is, if this information resonates with you, make sure that you tune in tomorrow, same time at 11 o'clock on Tuesday. And if you're watching this on the replay, both of these videos are going to be up on my Facebook page and on my YouTube channel. So you'll see these videos and start to think about what you can do to change this eating habits. At the same time, you're thinking about how to change your child's speech communication from nonverbal to verbal, and they're eating from relying on you to feed them to them eating independently. And think about what you want for that. If that's really a goal for you that you want to do, take a second and write down what kind of things you want your child to eat. Because on the video tomorrow, when I come in, you'll be able to see the ways to get your child over some of these resistances, over some of these mindset things to do by making exposure to eating whatever you're trying to offer. So if you're trying to offer liquids, if you're trying to offer solids, if you're trying to move your child from not eating nothing to eating everything, or eating everything to eating nothing, you know, whatever transition you're trying to help your child, you'll be able to find strategies for that. But your little homework for tonight then is to write down on a sheet of paper the things that you want your child to eat and the things that you want your child potentially to eat less of, so that when you're ready to watch these videos tomorrow, you're going to be prepared to do it. And I want to start doing a little bit more of that kind of education on these videos, because I'm getting ready to release my independent study course. And I want parents to get in the mindset of not even relying on me to do these strategies. I want you to start to watch my videos and use your own information and access to the information around you in your household to help your child learn how to overcome all the things that you need them to overcome, like eating issues and talking. And because I've been working with families for almost a year now, online exclusively, 14 months, and almost 2 years just using these exclusive coaching methods, I now have written a course in how to help parents do it, and I'm trying to get it together and put together the computer nuts and bolts and that kind of stuff, because that's my learning curve. I came into this profession as a sit together with families and work together on the problem kind of therapist, and now I'm trying to figure out how to put it on video content to get you doing it. And so activities like this, where you have to sort of take my information and go on your own and think about making your own goals and coming up with your own strategies after you watch my videos, this is how you're going to transform into a language facilitator. So if you're just watching my YouTube videos and you're not in my program, this video is going to give you an idea of what kind of activities you're going to have to do. And then the video tomorrow is going to be really digging in to how I'm going to explain strategies to do that. And the video tomorrow is the tip of the week video is what you're going to be looking for. And it's going to be I'm going live at 11 a.m. on my Waves of Communication page to give you the strategies to teach your child how to eat whatever you want them to eat, and or stop eating whatever you need them to eat less. And so then you want to tune into that video with your list of foods that you want to do so that you can pick out the strategies, because I'm going to be talking about strategies to do all of those things. And you're going to be able to pick out the strategies you're going to need and take them into your household the next time you're trying to facilitate these things. And hopefully, between doing this work and watching my videos, these two videos, you'll be able to help your child make this shift. That's my plan. So I hope, thank you so much for watching this video today. If you just came in, go back to the beginning as soon as the replay is up and you can catch it all on the replay. And thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll see you all tomorrow on the follow-up video to this one. Have a great day and get making your lists of all the food you want to eat with your kiddos. And I'll see you all on my next live video.